On, Bogues. I got your draft report right here. Moody prick, mullet, and has a frosty tips on his hairdo. Really concerning. That's what I got right here.
Oh,
I
nice.
got it on your report. Yeah.
It's not on your whiteboard back there with all the bullshit plays you wrote
No,
up?
I haven't changed that fucking thing since 1983.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, another week of action, NBL, NBA, a lot going on. Pro, what's going on?
Bogues, how's it going, brother? All good?
Good. A lot going on. A lot of stuff starting to kind of figure itself out in the NBA. Some injuries, ups and downs. We're almost. Would you say we're through the honeymoon period yet?
Almost. I would say another week or two.
Game 20 usually. Yeah, game 20. Yeah, we're almost out of the honeymoon period, so that's when things start to get interesting with injuries and rotations and guys bitching about minutes and touches, and if teams not doing too well, like you look at your Milwaukee's and your Phillies.
We haven't seen a team-only meeting, and we know that the season doesn't really start until there's a players-only meeting. So haven't had one of those.
You should trademark that. You should trademark that. The season doesn't start until there's a players-only team meeting.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened yet.
Could be a hell of a T-shirt.
Surely Milwaukee's had one. They're probably coaching themselves at this point. It's like, sorry, Doc, we're just going to do our own shit the way you're going. But yeah, it's been interesting. There's a lot of teams probably higher than we picked and lower than we picked, and then you factor in Philly and Milwaukee. Nobody really picked to be bottom five in their respective conferences. I just read Embiid's going to be potentially out again now with an illness, so they're going to be on his ass now in Philly. And they're desperate for a win. But we'll get into the team of the weeks. Who is your team this week?
Bogues, I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Lakers of all people. But they've been playing pretty well, I thought, over the course of the week, for sure. I mean, they're on a little bit of a run. I thought they played well. What do you think about the old Lakers?
Yeah, won 5 straight. They were at this point last week, I think they were just over 500. Now they're 9-4. They're a decent spot in the West and fourth. I mean, the West is so deep, as we've spoken about. You're not going to get through the West easily like you are the East and get a spot with a 500 record. But Anthony Davis, man, he's got to be the front runner. If the season stopped today, he's my MVP. I think he's playing very, very good basketball. I think he's the main. LeBron has put up some numbers. He had, I think, three straight triple doubles, was it?
Mm-hmm.
But Anthony Davis is just playing really, really good basketball. 31.1, 11.2, and 2.6 a night as of current pro. And if he continues, if he's 30 and 10 a night, the biggest thing with him we've spoken about at length is health. Can he play? If he plays 65 and above at these numbers, they have a chance to be, a second, third round team. LeBron, obviously putting up triple doubles. They've got some good young talent, and his shooting clips, bro. This is his best season from three in his career at the moment. He's not shooting them en masse, but more than he shot last season. And he's just under 43% from three at 2.3 attempts. So not a lot, but he's 56% from the field. He's 80% from the line. He's blocking 2 shots a night. He's got 1.3 steals a night. He's not turning the ball over a lot. I think he's front runner today if it stopped today, and I think he's the main reason why those Lakers are 9-4.
Yeah, Bogues, they're playing really well. I mean, his availability, it's been unmatched in comparison to the last few years. He's a guy that just gets out every 4, 5, 6 games. There's something he sits, but he's been pretty reliable. I mean, him and LeBron are putting up video game numbers, and I'll tell you what, their rookie Dalton Nett out of Tennessee
found his shot.
Yeah, averaging 9 a game. I mean, the Miami Heat should send over 4 first-round picks for getting Gabe Vincent off their salary cap. He's getting $11 million a year, and the guy's putting up 2.9 more points than I am. I mean, it's been rough for Gabe. I know he had an injury last year, but they are playing well. We all give JJ Redick a lot of shit and stuff, but they're playing well as ATO.
Well, credit to JJ. He was on record with him saying that no, he's a world class shooter. When the early season struggles he had, he wasn't shooting it that well, and I guess he got asked about it and said, no, this guy's a world class shooter. JJ was a world class shooter. He's like, I would know. I'm playing. And now you see he's knocking them down. Like he's really shooting the ball well.
Yeah, in the West, look, I mean, obviously the West is going to be loaded without doubt. And the Lakers right now could sit around. I mean, look, I think it's a little fool's gold, Houston and LA at the third and fourth seed. But I mean, they're still, both teams are playing well. But the Lakers itself, I mean, they could find themselves anywhere from like, and I wasn't a Laker fan, obviously coming in as far as what I thought they could do win wise, but right now, as far as how it's shaping up, I mean, I think Memphis is still going to be pretty good. Dallas is going to be better. The bottom teams are probably going to stay in the bottom. It's really not like the East, where you got a couple of front runners that are in the basement. The only team probably out of the bottom four that's going to find their way out is probably New Orleans, if they could find their way out of injury. If they could get some guys healthy. But the Lakers themselves, they're playing great. If anything, Davis could continue this. Him and Jokic are going to be neck and neck probably for the MVP if he could stay healthy. And it's good that they've been good up to this point. They've been playing well. They've been, I mean, I would think that was the team. I thought I was going to put Orlando in there because they did play well, but the Lakers are playing well. The 5 straight, and they look good so far. So I'll give it to them.
Yeah, I'm going with Orlando. You read my mind, just because they're missing their number one guy, and they've rattled off 5 straight. They're missing Banchero, and he's a huge piece of what they're doing, especially at the offensive end. They've just found a way to get it done. Now, their schedule hasn't been super tough. Injury riddled New Orleans. Then they beat Washington, and Charlotte's been playing well, so you can't discount that one. And Indiana are picked to be one of the top 5, top 6 in the East by most people. Great back-to-back wins for their 4 straight, and then their 5 was against Philly with Embiid and George on the floor. So, that's a bad loss for Philly, but it just shows you Orlando is finding a way to grind it out with stars missing. And this was, I made the point a couple of weeks ago, last week, about Phoenix with KD missing. It's like, this is where you show me what you are as a team. And I truly believe that. When you're missing your stars for small stretches during a season, it can bring guys together and really give a confidence that if you are missing them in the playoffs, or if you are missing them at different parts of the season, hey, it's business as usual. Like, we're not, oh shit, we're missing, Kevin Durant, or we're missing Giannis, or we're just going to be a loss. We'll battle, but it'll probably be a loss. Where it seems like Orlando, with the youth and talent they have on that team, I wouldn't say they're overly talented, but they have good pieces, good veteran pieces, guys that play with a lot of energy. They're finding impressive wins, bro, and it puts them in a really good position in the East. I mean, and like you said, it's, if you can get a nice little head start in the East, I think you're going to be a top 4 team, and they're 3rd at the moment in 8-6. I just like that they've done that without their superstar. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the NBA is nobody cares. Like, nobody feels bad for you if you're going to have people out, and they take advantage of you, and then you have to take advantage of playing while you're understaffed or undermanned. You take advantage of teams that weaknesses in the schedule, lesser teams, or you're facing a team that has injury issues, like you said with New Orleans. Look, this is a group that just fights. They play hard. Suggs, Wagner, Wendell Carter plays hard. Mo Wagner plays hard. Anthony Black, Gary Harris. Those guys come together as a unit. Jamal Mosley is all about, together and toughness and persevering, especially when guys are out, and, just the next man up. And that's what, look, it's ample opportunity, especially if you're somebody playing the second unit or that 3rd or 4th guy in the rotation, as far as, 4th option of a team. Now your best player comes out. Now you sort of get to see what the value is, and everybody evaluating you. And, and I think it says a lot. Suggs continues to play well. Wagner continues to play well. And, it's great when other players step up. I mean, missing 29 and 9, 9 and 6 out of Banchero. It's unbelievable that those guys could piece together win streaks. And look, they're going to be right in the thick of things in the top 5, in my opinion. And I think that they'll probably be somewhere like 4, 5, 6. And I think you have to string together as many little winning streaks as you can. You have to surprise some teams. You can't take anybody lightly. This isn't college where your first 8 or 9 games are against like nobodies. Like, everybody's got NBA players, even the really bad teams. They got NBA players that could bust your ass if you take them lightly. So, Orlando's got that old school college mentality of like just togetherness. They play hard. They play together. They're young. They're fun to watch, and it's been good to watch those guys, piece together a win streak. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty safe pick for your team of the week.
Yeah, no doubt. My team of the week, I think Dallas Mavs. Look, they've had some tough games, and they lost when they went on that little 4-game losing streak. Every game was by 3 or under, unfortunately for them. 114 to 113 versus Phoenix, 122 to 120 at Denver, at Golden State, 120 to 117, and then at Utah, 115 to 113. Utah was the one that they had to get. When you're on a 3-game slide and you're going into a team's building that's strategically not really trying to win. You're going to play hard, but they're not going to try to win. And I know a lot's been made about Luka's defense. It does need to improve. I mean, just there's it's more the effort thing at that end, I think, than it is just being a bad defender. I think just a little bit more effort, but they should be much better than their record. Haven't really dealt with a lot of injuries. I think Luka's out today. Kyrie was out a little bit, but for them to be 6-7, they're still in the mix. Like I said, the 4 straight games and 3 points and under, they could have went the other way, and we're not talking about them. But I think that Utah one solidified that they need to play better. They're currently 13th in team defense and 13th in team offense, so it's about right. You ever really see teams, the same offensively and defensively in ranking? Although, bro, first Cleveland is first in both categories and Boston's second, so. You ever rarely see that. Usually you see a big fluctuation. A good offensive team's not a great defensive team, or vice versa. So I found that interesting as well. But I think with the talent Dallas have, same conversation again. If one of those guys is out injured, if something's not going right for them, they've got so much talent on that team. You got Clay there now. You got Luka. You got Kyrie, PJ Washington. You got bigs that are playing decent. Kleber's kind of making his way back from injury. They got good pieces that they should definitely not be 6-7 at this point, bro.
Yeah, I agree with that. They are struggling, without doubt they're struggling. And I think they're still trying to find their way a little bit, having Clay, finding the best way to use him. And look, everyone's expecting Clay to be the savior. Look, Clay's gonna stretch the floor. He's gonna make shots. He's gonna give you, veteran leadership. He's just gonna be giving you that consistency that you could depend on. But I still think that they're still trying to find themselves. Last year, remember, they really struggled in the first half of the year before trade deadline when
All-Star break.
when they made that deal for Gafford, late in the season. I feel as though they still have a lot to. They just got to find their groove a little bit. Najee Marshall, remember, he's just sort of his first year with the team. He's been playing pretty well, but there really hasn't been that spark off the bench. I remember talking about it when we were going over the West a couple of weeks back and saying, like, Jaden Hardy has to really be somebody who could step up and score points off the bench. That's the one thing they're really missing, is that spark plug of a 14 to 15 to 16 point scorer off the bench. That they really need. Look, Spencer Dinwiddie really hasn't. He's been struggling. Hardy hasn't really found his footing. Najee Marshall's been playing well. Don't get me wrong. PJ Washington has had some injury issues as of late. Kleber's not really a scorer, but he can knock down open shots. I still think they got plenty of time to sort of get things together. As far as trade value for guys, I think Gafford's a guy you're going to probably start hearing about. Lively's taking that starting spot, it seems like. And I think he's going to run with it, to be honest. And I mean, that's the only player that you could probably move for some trade, for somebody of value. You're not going to get much for PJ Washington. Najee Marshall, they're probably going to keep. Hardy, you could probably deal, but going forward. But I mean, I just think that they got time to settle things down. Irving, Luka obviously play well together. They're used to that, but I think that somebody else has to step up off the bench. Don't forget they're missing Exum in his 8 points and 3 assists a game. He's been out, since beginning of the year with an injury. So, yeah, I mean, there has to be somebody that steps up. Dinwiddie really, I mean, he's taken a nosedive since he got traded last year, or he got waived last year and got picked up late in the season by the Lakers. He really hasn't recovered from that for one reason or another. He was a guy that you could probably depend on to give you 13 to 15 a night, but they really need that spark off the bench, which, you could do it by collective shot making, or you could do it with just that one person that can give you really, give you some points, and they really haven't, gotten that yet. And I don't know who's going to step up and play that role, but yeah, they've been a little disappointing as of yet.
Yeah, still early. Like we said, we're still at the honeymoon period, so I'm not really, short selling anyone until probably game 20, game 25. We'll circle back and see how it goes. Dinwiddie's an interesting one because you thought that he was going to be that poor man's Jamal Crawford role where you just put him in and let him go to work, plays 15 to 20. If he's playing well, he plays 25. If he's not, it's closer towards 15. And you just let him go get buckets when Luka and Kyrie are out. But it hasn't worked that way. PJ Washington's had at time of recording, they're playing right now, and he's having a really good game at the moment against OKC. But it's one of those, PJ, Clay, one of these guys probably have to step up a little bit more. And I think Dante's interesting to see where his minutes flow with Hardy and a few other guys. They started Grimes today at the 2 with Luka out, so he's definitely finding some minutes. I think Dante's a bit more of a steadier for them. I don't think he's a erratic player. I think he just 2 feet in the paint, make the right play. So we'll be interesting to see how they go. I don't see them not making it or bombing out, but they haven't. It just hasn't looked that well, that good. And when you're scoring in the 110s and 120s and still losing, it's a bit of a concern. So who you got?
Oh, for team of the week, definitely the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't care about their win today. You lose to the Portland Trailblazers twice in a week, you should get demoted to the LEB in Spain. I mean, I mean, you shouldn't lose to Portland twice in a fucking decade. And these guys lost to them twice in a week automatically. And look, they're a good
Healthy
team.
too.
Look, they're going to be fine.
Anyone.
But you can't lose to the fucking Trailblazers twice in a week. I mean, give me a fucking break. Come on. No. Look, they're fine. Obviously, it's a funny one to throw at it, but you just can't. I mean, look, they'll be okay. Randall, had a buzzer beater, I think today, to beat somebody in,
Phoenix.
Phoenix. They'll figure things out, but yeah, that's gonna red flag you automatically. You're gonna get audited by the IRS. You can't be fucking losing to the Trailblazers twice in a week.
At least 1-1. Like, I mean, at worst, you run into a buzzsaw, someone's hot. I mean, they're 8-6 at the moment. They're okay. But the rule in the NBA is you try to, go 500 on the road and defend home court. But generally, it's coaches will always say, beat the team you're supposed to beat. Now, that's not always going to happen. But you need to go, to be a good playoff team that has a deep run, you need to go 75, 80% against shitty teams. You got to win. Every now and then you get to Utah at 2 a.m. It's the altitude. You go out and Clarkson has 30 off the bench and you're like, shit, like we just ran into a buzzsaw. But like you said, to go Portland back to back and come up 0 for 2, that's inexcusable. You got to pick up, especially in the West. I think these early season wins are going to be important. You look at Golden State, 10-2, OKC 11-2. I think they're going to be important for home court. And it seems like there might be a little bit of a shift back towards home court, maybe somewhat the importance of it compared to the last 5 years. Because I think when we went through the COVID stuff and the bubble stuff, I think it kind of, relinquished home court care. People didn't give a shit, whatever. It doesn't matter where we are. I think that mentality set in a bit once we got out of COVID, that players still didn't really give a shit because, we're talented, we'll be fine. Clippers, Phoenix, let's just get healthy. I think now it's starting to get a little bit more where, home court's kind of important. We saw that in the playoffs.
Yeah, without question. I mean, I think
especially Boston.
Yeah.
You want to go to Boston,
Without doubt. I think that you're absolutely correct. I think it's sort of shaping up that way, and the wins are important. And anytime you could take advantage of a win, like I always say about Carlisle with the whiteboard about, first game of the season about where teams lie. I mean, you have to take these games seriously because now you're going to start looking in March, late March, and you're like, and you needed that extra game or two that you shit fucked away in February or December. You're not really taking serious. And those 2 or 3 wins could really, gear you up. Especially, difference between being out of it and the play-in, home court versus not. In the play-in, out of the play-in, that's that 5 seed instead of 6 seed. So yeah, I definitely think that these wins, these early season wins and wins are very, very important to stack up. And if you're gonna come out struggling, especially if you're gonna lose 4 or 5 in a row, and 2 or 3 of those out of teams that you should never lose to, they're definitely gonna they're gonna sneak up and bite you come March and April, because especially when you're talking about playoff seeding.
Totally agree. Some news. I found this one funny. The Pelicans. I would love to know who you think has leaked this, pro. Just pick your brain a little bit. But the Pelicans weren't anxious to trade Dyson Daniels and try to keep him, but the Hawks wanted him badly, sources say. Where do you think that's come from?
Yeah, that's the worst fucking bullshit source I've ever seen in my life. Is that a Stephen A. Smith source? Because it's just, Yeah, that's obviously New Orleans leaking that. I mean, that's stupid.
Yeah, it's like
Look,
it's so obvious.
no doubt. Look, and I don't blame, and I know he's having an unbelievable, Daniels having an unbelievable season with the defense and things like that, what he's doing steal wise. But New Orleans had to make that trade. You had to bring in a guy like Jamal Murray. You know, I mean, the asset in the
DeJounte
trade,
Murray, yeah.
DeJounte Murray. I apologize, DeJounte Murray. You have to make that trade. Yeah, Daniels was a piece, don't get me wrong, but that was a trade they had to make. That's a player you have to throw in to make the trade work, I would think. And I bet Atlanta wanted to make the trade, but don't give me that bullshit. They didn't want it, and
they twisted our arm, bro.
Yeah.
They made us give him
Yeah.
up. We just couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy.
I think it's because he's playing so well at the moment. Mainly, especially at the defensive end.
Mhm.
I think it's the GM, president, whoever it is, leaking stuff just to make sure the owners are like, hey, we try. But I think it says more than by just not saying anything. Don't leak that kind of shit, because I think it makes you look inept, and that now you're trying to cover your tracks. You've done something bad.
Look,
but, no one would have thought Dyson would blow up the way he has, especially defensive. Not to. I think he was a very good defender in New Orleans, and he was going to be eventually an all-league defender. There's no doubt there. But the season after he was traded to lead the league in steals and deflections at the pace that he's doing it, no one would have picked that. So credit to him. But I think I know they had to make the trade. I still don't think it's a great fit. I think Murray with CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, it's like there's not enough basketball. Then you throw in Zion, it just doesn't fit. This isn't, Murray can have high assist games, but recently he's loved to score the ball and do his own thing as well. You got 4 guys that need the ball heavily, and I thought Dyson was a good piece on that team. Yeah, his shooting wasn't, and he's probably shooting it better this season and a bit more aggressive offensively. That's a beauty on being on a shitty team, well, kind of a team that wasn't picked to do much. They'll just let him play. It's kind of like Giddey, same situation, just let you play and play through your mistakes. Whereas in New Orleans, they're more, we need to make a playoff run and be a bit more tested that way. But I thought he was a good piece to be. McCollum's a bad defender. And Trae Young's a bad defender. And I think Atlanta's figured out we can play Dyson next to Trae Young, put Trae Young on the worst offensive player. Dyson always gets the toughest matchup, and you protect your star, McCollum or a Young a little bit defensively. But it's just an interesting comment to me.
Yeah, it is. I think mostly front offices and ownership, there's such a race to win the press conference, win the media, on every deal, and to the point where it's just sometimes just relax. You don't have to win every you don't have to win every press conference. You don't have to win every trade in the media. You got to wait for these things to sort of settle to the top. I think that, look, the Daniels is a good player, but he's still shooting 28 from 3 and 59 from the line. As much of a great defensive player that he is, offensively, like if you're a big analytical team, you're going to see that and be like, all right, you're going to weigh, all right, is the defense versus non-offense important, things like that. And then when you have a trade like that where you can get DeJounte Murray, I think that you look at it and you're like, all right, it's a decent piece, but we're trying to make a playoff run. Like you said, look, New Orleans has all these pieces and all these contracts that you have to pay off. Ingram, Zion, McCollum.
Ingram's gone. I think he's gone. He's not staying.
Now,
he didn't get that
yeah, I
extension.
think so. But look, you could be a moody motherfucker all you want. I mean, a team doesn't have to move you. And they probably don't love him. He doesn't love them. But I mean, for what he does and he can score and what he can do, and again, what are you going to bring back? That's the question you have to ask yourself. With Zion not being healthy and you can't really trust him. Look, we've had these players that we talk about that you can't really trust. We talk about Embiid all the time, about you just can't trust him being healthy down the stretch. Same thing has to be, talked about with Zion. You could say that about Ingram, and Ingram could be moody about not wanting to be.
Well, he's a free agent. More to my point of free agency, bro. Like
True.
He's the last year of his deal. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily mean he's going to want to trade his way out right now. I
Yeah.
think they'd be probably smart to do that if they could.
Yeah.
Because he can just walk, and I think he will walk into the season. I think he's definitely a guy that, I played with him for a season. He seems like a guy that just wants to be respected, and I think he feels he was disrespected by not getting what he wanted, which is here or there, debatable. And I think that will.
What do you want, Bogut? A contract? A certain contract?
Extension, yeah, a
Yeah.
certain number. I
Yeah.
think one of the like a close to max extension. They just can't really do it though. They got Zion on 40, 42, and 45, and then they got McCollum on 30 next year, and then they got Murray's contract. That's the one that killed Ingram's deal from happening, I think, is bringing in Murray. Now you've got 31, 33, and 31. Even Herb Jones is on 13 and 14. So they just don't have if they give them that extension, it absolutely destroys them. It puts them to the upper echelon of the NBA with not much of a return winning-wise, right?
I think, yeah, I agree with that, but I do think it's early, and I think that, attitudes can change. Other players that you thought you were gonna keep and, you're gonna deal Ingram, that could change throughout the end of the year. If they don't trade him and they keep him, and they could start making a little bit of a run. I mean, look, they have the talent to do it. Yeah, you're right, it's not the greatest fit, as far as the ball and things like that, but you're gonna have to make some tough decisions as far as touches and play calling and things like that. I don't know. I mean,
And Trey Murphy, 25, as of
yeah,
next season,
you just did
25,
Trey Murphy's
27, 29, and 31. So,
right.
yeah, that'll be interesting. And I
But
know,
don't forget too, Bogues. Don't forget too, the new media deal kicks in a couple of years too,
yeah,
which will give him some relief. I think that I agree with you. I think Ingram would walk, but if he's a guy that has a lot to do with them winning by the end of the year, and he's getting all
force
the
a
shots
hand.
he wants, he's
Yeah.
getting the points. Yeah, and then he'll be like, "Fuck it, we got to sign this guy because we can't just let him walk." I don't know, Bogues. I'm not a fortune teller with that, but you're right. They got a lot of decisions to make. Daniels probably would have fit in as far as his defense and things. But look, he wasn't doing that last year. He's an inconsistent rookie
Yeah.
that really was an okay piece, and now he's putting up, great numbers, almost all-star like numbers on an Atlanta Hawks team that's just okay. But yeah, you're right. It goes to show you, like I've heard stories in the past about NBA teams, calling up talk radio, having interns call up talk radio to, to do some things like emails, fake accounts. We've seen that fake account thing
Colangelo.
done, and there's such a rush, Bogues, to win all this media stuff instead of just making the right deal and going through some struggles with it. But don't spread false. That's, to me, it's like 98% that it's definitely coming from the team, and there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
But that's just the NBA. It's media, 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 and that's the person you're trying to impress because you feel as though the more media, if you're a GM, the more good media that you have, and if you could, cook your books and put everything under the table, sweep it under the rug where it'll help you with a new contract extension going forward, and and other teams want you. It's an interesting dynamic of the NBA that's a little bit childish.
Definitely. Next one, we have the NBA is in serious discussions for a new 4-team tournament format for the All-Star game, bro. That's all I've read. I haven't really gotten the nitty-gritty. I haven't heard much more about it, but sounds absolutely stupid. Don't know how it'll work. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Bogues, look, purists want to go back to 1988 where everybody competed, players competed, all this, and, they tried, and it was a competitive all-star game. That's never going to happen again, ever, 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 ever going to happen again. It's become a joke the last probably decade, but let's just say the last 4 or 5 years, a complete joke, as far as the game itself. And look, the NBA is all about money, right? They want to continue to package things, sponsorship, the Emirates Cup, the play-in, all these new things that are just, trying to like captivate the audience and keep eyeballs on their product. I think they have to make some type of a change. I'm not a big fan of what they're trying to do. I'm not a big fan of the game. I think they should cancel the thing. Obviously, they can't do that. But now you're adding another game to it.
Exactly.
Like these players don't want to be there as is. It is what it is for the most part. Look, they'd rather be resting. I mean, the way the scheduling goes and all that, they want to be rested. They don't want to be there. But it's bad enough it's one game and plus media. Now you're going to ask them to be there for 2 games. Maybe they'll pump a little life into it the first year, but it's just going to be
I don't think it will. You just got 2 games that are going to have score lines of 160 to 140. Really, like the solve for me is international versus the rest. That's a solve because I think and then factor in, the winners get prize money, the losers don't. To some extent, I don't know what that is, whether it's a couple of million each, but I think if you if you have international versus American, there's always that debate. I know the Americans are somewhat pissed at the fact that the game's gone super international and you got international stars, winning MVP. I know that's not well liked by American players, and I know the international guys are coming in saying we're better than you guys. We think we're better. We're this. Whereas Americans are like, no, this is still our stuff. But let's see it. Let's do it. I think that would it'll give it some life for a couple of years. Does it sustain? Is there a possibility of it going down the track? I don't know. I think, but it brings some pride back to the All-Star game where you actually give a fuck and something's on the line. Right now, the current format and all these other formats are coming up with, I think international versus America is the best one on the table.
I tend to agree with you a little bit for sure. Again, I don't know if the players would actually care that much. I think that they would a little bit. I think it's better in international competition where there's so much of a, everybody's a little tense about it. I think the All-Star game is just going to be the All-Star game. Now, I think if you want to I think the only way to use the embarrassment factor is I'd give $2 million. I'd give $2 million a guy for the winner. I'd give like $50,000 for the loser.
Yeah.
Where
exactly.
That's the only way. Like to me, you can't do it where it's like $1,400,000 or $800,000, $300,000.
The loser should get literally a check for like $100.
Well, you know that. I mean, they'll get a lawsuit out of that. But you're right.
But they have bonuses in their shoe deal anyway. Yeah. So it's like if you lose, you shouldn't get anything. You shouldn't just. That's the other issue. It's like, oh well, we didn't get $1 million, but we got the $500K. But
yeah, I gotta understand why Adam Silver and these guys are trying to do this. They got to try to change.
They got to
do
something, yeah. But this isn't it though.
Yeah,
this isn't it. They got to do something to rock it up. But it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's we've discussed it at length for the last 3-4 years, and it's not a basketball purists event, that's for sure. It's more of an influencer, Instagram model, singer type event. But if they want purists engaging, it'd be interesting to see what the numbers are like year on year, and just where it's going to be this year, even with the changes. So, look, we're both not going to watch it, so it's not going to really matter. And we'll shit on it once it's done. But I just think that the last thing they've got left is international versus the rest. That would bring somewhat of a bit of a, outside of prize money, would bring maybe somewhat some passion or pride, or like, hey, and then you just get the media to drum up a bunch of shit before strategically, so. But anyway, next one, we have the 76ers are not deviating from their plan to prioritize health of stars for playoffs over regular season record. Now, I emphasize playoffs, over regular season record, because at time of recording, the Philadelphia 76ers record is 2-10. So they might be, not prioritizing the playoffs. It might just be that their players will be healthy in April when they go on their vacation to Cancun or wherever they're going, because they're luckier in the East, at 2-10, because it's still salvageable. But we've discussed this. It's just kind of like, when do you push that button and just say, get out there and play?
Yeah, I just think at the landscape of the NBA, Bogues, you're just not going to get away with that. You just can't do it anymore. You can't push these players to do what you want them to do. They're just going to do what they do, and they're gonna listen to other people. They're gonna listen to other influences, agent. They're gonna listen to people in their circles. They're gonna listen to themselves. They're gonna read social media, and they're. I think they're always gonna push the same story of, rest. I'm not gonna risk it, especially with the way we're going. Look, it's all about players being healthy, but then again, it's always, if you're not going to make the playoffs, it's, or you're going to make the playoffs, but not in a spot where you'll have a chance to advance.
Exactly.
Then what are we doing? Yeah. But I think it's gonna, I don't blame the Sixers for not ramping it up, because you ramp it up and a guy gets hurt and it's another 2 months, but it's definitely a catch-22, because obviously where they're at, there's really no, you can't really solve this problem. You can't force them to play. They're not going to do that. And if you do force them to play and they get hurt, forget about it. You're done. I think the biggest story now for the Sixers, Bogues, and I know you don't really follow American football, but the Washington General, I forgot the Washington football team.
Generals.
The Washington's name. Yeah,
formerly the Washington.
No, it's not the Redskins anymore.
Formerly the Redskins. Commanders.
Exactly. So the Washington football team is being the owner is the owner, part owner is the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. His advisor that helped him choose a head coach for his football team was Bob Myers.
That's right. Yeah, he was part
He's
of
always
yeah.
he gets $1 million a month, Bogues. $1 million a month. Where do I sign up for that consulting gig? That's unreal. But anyways, I digress. But now you're struggling, okay? And it's just human nature. You're struggling as a team. You're the owner of the Sixers, but you're going to games every Sunday. You're in a box with Bob Myers. That's started this dynasty. Had a lot to do with the dynasty in Golden State. You're not asking him, hey, what would you do? Like in those situations, you're just going to be, worried about your quarterback and your defensive schemes in football. You're not going to ask him where your team's in the gutter and you got to hear about it every day. You're not saying, hey, what would you do? What would you do? That's going to be an interesting scenario if, with that guy in-house. And Bob's not like that. I'm not saying he is, but like, I'm just saying and if you're Bob Myers, the owner is asking you your advice, you're not going to give it to him. And then, and how does that add to the friction of Daryl Morey, what's going on in Philly? Look, it's got very little to do with Daryl Morey. Daryl did everything he needed to do. He acquired, he drafted Maxey. He already had Embiid. He drafted Maxey. He acquired Paul George. Jared McCain, the point guard, who's doing really well out of Duke. They drafted him. Acquired him. So, look, it's not really Daryl Morey's issue, but it's just human nature in the league. Owner, you know how owners are. They're always going to be searching for something. And you got a guy who won multiple NBA championships. What did they win? 4? I forgot. 3 or 4 Golden State. But like, you got that guy 2 feet from you, and you're not going to ask him for your advice. But anyways,
Well,
I digress.
disagree with you, bro. We were saying you don't blame Philly. I do blame Philly. You got to play together, man. Like you look at Golden State's dynasty years, the 4 years, or let's say the 3 years, they played their stars 65 plus games. Steve was
they drafted those guys. They drafted all those guys. They didn't acquire them. They drafted all of them. I get that,
but you got to play together, man. You got to build continuity. You got to build ups and downs. You got to get blown out by 30 together and then win by 30 together just to build momentum and culture and camaraderie. I know these words are used a lot, but I think that's valuable. And I think it's valuable in the NBA as much as it is in any league because you have so many games that you don't give a shit about. You can't just turn it on in the playoffs. And I think who's the last team pro that did this rest protocol that went deep in the playoffs and won a championship? Even Toronto didn't do it with Kawhi. He still played, I think he played 65 plus that year, didn't he? When they won it. Who's the last team that's done it? No one. Golden State had 3.
But they're not doing it out of rest. They're not doing it out of rest, though, Bogues. They're doing it more out of injury as far as their first month. Yeah.
So
but no, not prevention. But Embiid's been Embiid.
Yes, but also
we don't know what happened with Embiid.
But also now he's back and Paul George are back healthy, and they're saying you go on 1 out of 2. You're not playing back to backs, even if there's a day's rest between it, right? So my point is, how do you build continuity?
Oh, no. They'll play. They'll play 2 in a row. They just won't play back to back. They'll play on 1 day's rest, right?
Sure?
They didn't say they weren't going to play.
I thought
Embiid. I thought it was back to back, but I could be wrong.
Anyways, point being,
you're right.
Point being, they're on pace to play 40, 50 games, right? And you kind of like, and we're still going to strategically rest them. If they've got a plan to prioritize their health, it won't just be back to backs. With Golden State, you had Steph, you had Clay, you had KD, you had Draymond as your 4 stars, right? When I was there for that 1 year with KD and even before, Steve would come to you every now and then and be like, look, you've played 7 of the last 7. We're going to give you 8 off. And that's fair enough. You get that every now and then. You're like, hey, we got this next week, we've got three games. We're just going to play you in 2 and give you an extra 5 days straight rest to bank up for the next month. No problem whatsoever. But this stuff of like, we're going to pre-plan all the games you're missing right now. I'm not for it. I think you need continuity. I think it shows. I think the teams that have gone, even Dallas that made a deep run, they weren't really doing that with Luka and Kyrie. And yes, Kyrie was acquired, Luka was drafted. I get it, but I just think Paul George is 34, Embiid's 30, going on 30. Like, what are you resting for? you probably got Embiid's got 2 to 3 years left in his prime as a big, and then you start to dwindle. Paul George is right at the tail end of that. Probably got another year at this level, and then body's just naturally going to go downhill. I think you got to play. You got to get guys together. They need to play 60, 65 games together at a minimum to sustain some sort of consistency going into a playoffs to give you a shot to get through a playoff series in 2 and 3 and maybe get to the finals. I just don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Philly come back and win a championship, and then everyone goes to this fucking protocol like the Warriors went to small ball. Who knows? But I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, they've had a lot of bad luck with health. And again, I don't know what happened with Embiid. I don't think anybody does except them.
Well, apparently
And
he went
with
to
Paul
the
George
south
being
of
hurt.
France, from what I heard, after the Olympics, because I know someone close to the situation, after the Olympics, went to the south of France for 2 to 3 weeks, did fuck all after the Olympics, came back, and they were like, clearly you're half cooked and overweight. We can't get you straight into stuff. So we'll give you another 2 weeks to ramp up. Then he's come back and got hurt. So that was the mail I got.
Yeah, and you guys had nothing like that in Golden State. Like, you don't, like, he's a different type of superstar. And I don't mean that in a good way. Like, those guys loved it, right? Like Steph, it seems like that. Don't get, I know KD loves it. Steph, I assume, loves it.
Clay loved it. Draymond loved it. We all did.
Clay loved it. Draymond loved it. KD, Harrison,
and we
Barnes.
hadn't won shit before all that happened. Like, so it was kind of Philly's the same position. Like, if Philly were coming off 2 championships in 3 years, like Boston, you can excuse for somewhat doing this, right? They had a deep run last year. Maybe they strategically do this. You haven't won. So it's like, you don't know.
Well, they don't.
You don't know what's there, bro, because you're not putting it together. You don't know how good can this team be. How do you know? Like, Embiid plays 3 out of 4 games a week. Then we're going to rest George. Maxi's coming back off an injury, so we're going to. I get it, but at some point you got to be like, you know what? We've got 40 games left. You guys are going to play 35 of them. We'll get you one every now and then. And then no one fucking practices anymore. This isn't like we used to practice too. Like with Golden State, we would still practice, especially before we'd won. Look, once we got to that grind of back-to-back championship runs and all that kind of stuff, it was obviously practice was a bit more fine-tuning, just get in there, feel the ball, get some shots up, run through our stuff. But before that, we were practicing, man. Like these were hour and a half physical sessions, right? Today, that no one practices. Even the shitty teams don't really practice.
This is similar to the Clippers, right? With Kawhi and with Paul. Yeah, and when those guys weren't hurt. But that's the thing, though, with George being hurt, and I blame it more on Embiid, just shit fucking away and not being in shape. Like, there's nothing that happened. I mean, it would have come out if he did something. I mean, those things, they come out. And I agree with you. I mean, your story, you say you have a close source on that. I totally agree with that. If that's what came back. And that's what really fucked this whole thing up. Because look, if he played and they were winning, and then maybe not even dominating, but winning, but they were still resting, I think people would be okay with it. But the fact that they were this bad, Paul George hurt his knee, so you can't really put it on him. And then you got him, you got Embiid not in shape and really causing this demise of the team. It's a problem. It is a problem. But look, that everybody wants to be great. Everybody says they want to be great. But like the really great ones that really compete and really are focused on it and really love it, they're not going to allow themselves to get out of shape like that, where it's going to hurt the team. Guys get out of shape. Don't get me wrong. There have been great players that get out of shape, but then get back in during the season. But to do this, where you're going to have to miss the first month of the season in training camp and all of this, and now everything's on your back. It's a big problem, especially now. Maxi's hurt. He's out for a little bit of a period of time.
It's clunky.
That's a problem.
And look, Embiid's a phenomenal player, and that, I want to see him on the court more. I want to see him healthy. I think there hasn't been a team, as far as I can remember, that has won a championship with this protocol. I know it's a relatively new thing, and maybe it happens in the future, but to date, it hasn't been a recipe for success. Like you got to play together. I just don't think it works that way. Just quickly, Holmgren is out 8 to 10 weeks, falling on his hip. I think fractured hip, I believe it is, or something along those lines, or pelvis. Mm-hmm. So that sucks for them. They're obviously a bit short with bigs as well. So I wonder if they make a move. But good news, pro. Separately, Warner Brothers Discovery struck a deal with Disney to license the TNT show Inside the NBA to ESPN and ABC starting next season. Obviously, TNT losing NBA rights and all that kind of stuff. Everyone was wondering what the hell happens to the show. So the show obviously featuring Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny Smith, and
Ernie Johnson.
Ernie Johnson, there we go. Thank you, bro. I've gone blank there, getting old. But they'll all be moving over to ESPN. So that's great news, great show. I think everyone enjoys the way they feed off each other banter wise and the comedic value of it. Let's just hope ESPN doesn't go its route of trying to tweak it or moderate it in any way. I think those four you just got to kind of put out and let them go to work, and sometimes you deal with a bit of backlash about what they say, but I think that's the shock value that you got to deal with. So I think that's a great deal for ESPN and for basketball fans.
I think it sort of saved them from some litigation too. I think since Turner was going to bring him to court for breach of contract, because remember they came up with a bid, and then the matching bid, and then they denied it and then gave it to the other services and things, and I think they were going to bring litigation to him. So I think they get rights. They get like digital rights to the NBA in some capacity. I don't think they get the game streaming and things, but I think they could probably sell off the rights to the show and things like that. So there's some deal that was probably struck.
They'll get a cut from the show, definitely, to sell it off. So, but it's for basketball fans, it's great news. And then finally, Lamelo Ball gets $100K fine for a comment that said, when asked about them defensively, he just said, "We loaded up, no homo." So that's 100,000 pro in the NBA, and I found it interesting because I think a blatant swearing rant would get you 25K, but if the H word you can't that gets you about a 4 times tax on your NBA fine, pro.
Well, did you see the answer he gave back on social media?
No.
About not taking the whole load. Yeah. So just after the 100K.
Yeah.
So he said something like, you gave me the whole load or something like that. So obviously he's fucking with him again. I'll be interested to see if the NBA goes further on the fine.
He reposted and said, "You gave me the whole load," referring to his fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The tweet about his fine. I mean, hey, it is what it is, man. I mean, there's certain things you can't say. And you're right that there are some rules you say, wait a minute, you could say all this and you only get fined this, and you say one word and it's 100. But and there's been a bunch of players like Jokic, Roy Hibbert that said it, and they got different types of fines. But you know how they change the rules every year, and
well, you better off saying
day to day.
F&C bombs, your mother, your dad, your grandma, 25K.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, but yeah. It's always interesting, man. But yeah, read his answer to that. That's pretty
I wonder
fun.
if it's still up. All right. Some useful or useless for you, pro. Who's the league leader in 3-point percentage without looking at it?
Isaiah Joe from Oklahoma City.
No. I'll give you 3 guesses. Be nice to you today.
Let me see. Tatum was on a tear, but he's been off. Hold on. All right. It's probably not Steph, but I'll say Steph, Isaiah Joe. Let me see. It's definitely not Halliburton. He's fucking couldn't hit water if he fought off a fucking boat. Let me see. Buddy Hield.
Larry Nance Jr.
Ooh.
Yep.
That is not a name I would thought.
66.7% pro. Obviously he's in a good rhythm. 2.6 a night. I think he's 15 for 21, I believe. So hasn't shot a lot of them, but this is a guy that I played with, was not a 3-point shooter, was a guy that you dare to shoot at times. So credit to him, man. He's put the work in. He kind of floated around Portland, New Orleans. He'd shoot 1 or 2 a game, maybe hits one, feel good. That was it. But he's shooting it very, very well. So just one that I came across my desk, I was like, oh, wow. 2 is Jokic, 3 Taurean Prince, 4 Aaron Gordon, pro. He's 4th at the moment, and Ty Jerome is in 5th on percentage at the moment. So some interesting names in there that you would definitely not have. I mean, besides Jokic, you'd be like, wow, Prince as well as a decent shooter. But Gordon and Larry Nance Jr. getting it done. Useful, useless.
That's completely useless, but it's a great stat right now to have. Yeah, completely useless.
It's useful if you didn't know it. It's useful, I think. You had no idea. If I gave you how many guesses would you need? How many players in the NBA?
Yeah, 510. So you have to give me 480, and I might get. And I'm a big obscure player fan, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think it's useful. All right.
Yeah, I would have never gotten it.
Opponents are shooting 91% in the paint when guarded by who?
Oh wait, I saw this one.
Yeah.
I saw this one. It's not Rudy Gobert.
No, it's not Rudy Gobert. He'd have a good number.
No. Yeah, you're right. But yeah. Karl Anthony Towns.
Yes, Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
Opponents are shooting 91% in the paint when guarded by him. So not a lot of rim protection. And this was an issue I brought up, during the trade. I brought up that they improve heavily at the 5 spot offensively, but is that gonna equal itself out? Because Towns is notorious for being a bad defender that doesn't like contact at that end, which is strange because on offensive end he's stronger than I thought. Guarded him a few times, like he'll hit you in the post when he's got the ball, but when he doesn't have it, he'll move out of the way. And I don't know if you ever check out Jeff Teague's podcast, but he's actually have you seen any of his clips? If you haven't, I recommend it.
He's funny.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's actually quite funny. And he was telling a story that they, when they were playing, who was it? It was Cousins, I think, in New Orleans. And I think Thibs was their coach at the time. And he said it was Towns and Taj starting together and said, Towns, you're starting on Cousins. And then you guys, if you get an early foul, flip-flop the matchup so you guys don't get in foul trouble. And T was telling a story that he said the first possession Cousins got on the block, Towns just wrapped him up and was like, hey Taj, let's switch. And everyone was just like, what the fuck? So just a small segue into the psyche of Towns at the defensive end. It's not great. That's why I think Huck Porty will be, a valuable player for them at times, especially with the Robinson injury, because they do need a bit of brute down there. But he is on the offensive end, he's been very, very dominant, but just an interesting stat, bro. Useful, useless.
That's pretty useful. I mean, 91%. Now it's early. It's the same thing, I guess you could say about the Larry Nance 60% deal, but 91% is a lot.
I think league average is league average is the high 50s, low 60s, somewhere around there. Because don't forget, these are dunks, layups, floaters. But
so the NBA Bogus, an above average player shoots about 60% at the rim, right? Now I don't know if they're counting the rim and the paint as the same thing or different, but so they shoot like the high guys like a Luka, whatnot. They'll shoot like 70% from on a high end. Like those guys are the highest. Like he's like one of the highest. Now that's for guards. Now bigs probably different because they're mostly at the paint, lob guys and stuff. But 91 is very, very high.
As a big too. Like if you're a guard and coming on help side, you might get scored on a lot.
That's crazy. But Bogues, look, everyone's got warts, right? Like everyone's got warts in the game. That's not his thing. His thing is 3-point shooting, face up, post scoring. But I mean, you would think that even if you put a little bit of an effort into it, and you get Tibbs there, who's probably one of the biggest defensive masterminds the league's ever seen, that he would give you some tips and tricks to sort of be better at the rim. I mean, like it's unbelievable. That's an unbelievable stat. 91% is crazy.
So that's definitely something teams will be looking at when he's involved in pick and roll. He's involved in the paint kind of stuff. He's just go at him, and he'll give up some easy, spit out some easy baskets. So that's something that New York definitely need to improve on. All right, Aussie of the week. No surprise, Dyson Daniels. Now, this is 2 games over the week. There's a game right now at time of recording, which is just about to end. So that game does not factor in the stats. But 2 games of last week, 26.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 5 assists per game, and 6 steals per game in that week. They got him a new nickname, Pro. Did you see this one?
What was that?
Dyson Daniels' nickname. You see this one? New one?
No.
The Great Barrier Thief. I like that one.
The Great Barrier Thief. You like that one?
Quite good. Yeah. The other one was what was the other one? Man of Steel. Decent. Okay. Not too bad. But the Great Barrier Thief. Really, really good.
Man of Steel.
This is his
Great Barrier Thief. That's
great.
It.
Yeah, that's it. And, so this will be his second Aussie of the week, currently leading the leaderboard. Giddy will give him number 2, 9.3 points, 4.6 rebounds, 4.6 assists, and 1 steal per game. He's actually playing right now. They're getting blown out by Houston, so his line won't be good. But what I want to touch on Giddy, he's made comments, coaching staff and him, about his poor defense. So publicly, so he said, guess he was asked why his minutes have been kind of a bit spotty lately over the last week or so, last 10 days, playing kind of low 20s, high teens. And he noted, made some kind of comments about himself, being hard on himself, saying my defense has been poor, I need to improve in that area. And I like to hear players do that publicly. You don't see that a lot. You don't see a lot of players publicly reprimand themselves to that extent. So I think he knows it's an issue, and I think he can be a decent defender. He's long and strong enough to be better than where he is today, just with a bit of application. I mean, I always circle back to Steph Curry and how he became, an okay defender. He was never going to be a stopper or an elite defender, but just getting from a poor defender to an okay defender, then, it keeps you in rotations if you can shoot the ball or be a playmaker. And I think he has work to do there. So he's been up and down a little bit. Josh Green, also a shout out, has found a little bit of form with Charlotte at a couple of 15-point games. But Dyson Daniels gets the nod this week, pro.
Yeah. With the giddy defensive stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
Look, I think almost any player could be a serviceable team defender, right? And a couple of adjustments, philosophy on what you want to do, showing hands on drives, contesting every shot, stay on your feet, don't leave your feet, don't foul three-point shooters, bring them into the help. I mean, everybody, the switchers are brings guys into the help. You don't have to be a stopper, but you just have to sort of play angles. I think you get better at that. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for Daniels with this Aussie of the week for sure. Why wouldn't you? I mean, with the numbers he's putting up, 15 points. I mean, he's not shooting the ball. Might be an Aussie thing. I mean, I think Jock might be the best fucking Australian three-point shooter out there right now. So
Green, Thibault hasn't played this season. I think he's having knee surgery or had knee surgery. Reese kind of out of the lineup. So it'd be interesting to see who's the 3-point leader, XM2 to come back, and he was.
Jock was at 60% for a while, Bose. I don't know if you knew that.
On what, five attempts? Like, he doesn't shoot it much.
Yeah, 3 for 5. Yeah. Well, they got to drop more plays for him.
And I wish he shoots more, because he's actually a pretty good 3-point shooter when he gets in a nice flow and has a confidence about himself. But back to the Josh Giddey thing, I think when you are noted as not a great defender, you got to be so much more in tune to scouting reports and tendencies, and you got to spend extra time watching clips, watching film. Who's my matchup? What do they like to do? What's their spots? You got to be, there's a lot of guys in the league that don't buy into that too much, that don't watch a lot of film, that don't really bother about the scouting report, and they get away with it because they're so athletic and long. You can kind of get away with it. Once you've been in the league 10 years and you know players, you don't have to be in tune to it as much. But if you're a guy that's kind of on the poor side of defending, you got to be locked into that scouting report and not make simple mistakes.
And it's unbelievable what you can do by watching yourself on film on that boats too, like on what just little things you can do, little adjustments that you can make to become a better defender. Look, I've done plenty with players just watching film and cutting down mistakes and things that you do, getting into the ball and pick and roll, showing hands on every drive so you don't get holding calls, staying on your feet and contesting shots. A contested shot versus an uncontested shot, it's like an 8 to 20% difference in a shooter's shooting percentage, depending on where they shoot. If you contest a shot versus not. Defending without fouling, obviously that's a cliche, it's always used, but just showing hands and angle them into the help, things like that, and just showing a little bit more effort, where players like lunge a lot, they go for steals a lot. I'm not a huge go for steals guy. I would rather play solid, because you go for steals, you foul, you lunge and open yourself up for drives, and now everybody else has to help for you. I think that if you're just solid and contest every shot, stay on your feet and show hands on drives, you can really make a huge improvement in your defense. But it's just watching film and watching the mistakes you make and cutting those mistakes down over a period of time. But yeah, it's great that he actually took accountability for it. Like you said, most of these players don't at all levels. They want to be defensive when, they want to deflect blame. It's the coach, it's the matchup, it's this, it's that, instead of saying, look, I got to spend more time on it. And I think that he needs to really take it serious and figure things out, because he's got all the tools. Most players in the NBA has tools to be decent defenders. You may never be a stopper, which he'll never be a stopper, but he could definitely be better. I like the example you made, with Steph Curry. I mean, Steph was bad defensively, even through the championship years, where, the first early on in the championship years, and then he cleaned it up. He figured it out. Like, it's angle, it's effort, it's showing hand, it's little tricks. And then again, you don't have to be a stopper, but you just have to show that effort. Don't get blown up on screens. You're going to get screened, get right back into it, get on the hip of the offensive player you're guarding and things like that. There are little things that you could adjust to make yourself a better defender. But I do like that, this is the part of the podcast I like when we talk about things like that, where and give advice about it. We're not just trying to get hot topics and clickbait. Where I think talking about little things like that and what makes difference to NBA players is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think most NBA players can at least get to the average level. It's do they want to?
Yeah.
Have they just sold away their kind of their psyche as to what they've been labeled or what they're supposed to be? Like people forget. I was labeled as a poor defender coming out of college, like not a good defender, offensive orientated, and somewhat in college I had to be because I couldn't get in foul trouble. So it was kind of like I was so valuable at the offensive end in college that I didn't want to. If I get 2 or 3 in the first half, it takes away my aggressiveness, right? So I came out as like terrible defender, can't block shots, and then
see, hold on, Bogues. I got your draft report right here. Moody prick, mullet, and has a frosty tips on his hairdo. Really concerning. That's what I got right here. Oh, nice. I got it on your report. Yeah.
It's not on your whiteboard back there with all the bullshit plays you wrote
up? No, I haven't changed that fucking thing since 1983. No, I haven't changed that whiteboard.
No, but in all honesty, it's, sometimes you get labeled with something because of how you were and it can play in your psyche. We see guys as like, he's just a 3-and-D guy. But then on the flip side, you have guys that are rightfully labeled as something and then want to go gung-ho to prove that label wrong. It's like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a catch-22 a little bit, but it's interesting.
Folks, here's the thing. You get these NBA players, like let's take Russell Westbrook, for instance, right? Hall of Famer, first ballot, no doubt in my opinion, right? But he hasn't been able to shoot since he's gotten in the league. You've got all this time in the offseason. No offense to Westbrook. Everybody's got an award in the game. It's not a big deal. But, I don't understand NBA players sometimes. You have a glaring weakness in your game. For Russell's an MVP, unbelievable player. But the shooting was an issue. Why not hire an actual guy that could get you better or really make an effort on that part? Like, if I was an NBA player and I'm going to make, Russell's case, he probably makes close to $1 billion in his career, probably 600 million or whatever he made in his career salary-wise. But why not take the time to get better at it? Instead of doing all this other stuff and workouts and stuff in the offseason, why not just focus on that? So for Giddey, Giddey shooting, now obviously Chip England helped him a little bit early on. They got Peter Patton, who I worked with in Dallas, is unbelievable at teaching shooting. So he's got a shooting coach. Hopefully that's going to continue to get better. But defense is an issue. Okay, so obviously he's going to make the effort hopefully this season. But in the off season, why not you know what? Fuck this other shit. If I have a trainer with his fucking hat on backwards and he wants to do all this bullshit, I'm like, fuck you. You know what we're doing? We're fucking doing defensive rotations. I'm playing one-on-one all summer. You're going to get me the best tackling dummies that you can get as far as guys who play overseas, young college kids, and I'm going to guard them. And we're going to watch film, and I'm going to watch film of NBA players doing it. I'm going to watch film of me playing against these guys every day, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, until I get better at it. So now I get back in a training camp, and I've had 2 or 3 months where I've done this 4 or 5 days a week. Now, of course, you're going to do other things, workout-wise. But, I don't understand, folks, NBA players, if the stigma is you can't do this, and you're seeing it in the stats and the film, why you wouldn't do that. Kobe, I remember Kobe told me one summer that his left hand wasn't very good. He had 3 workouts a day he would do in the summer. One workout was he tied his right hand, around his back, and all he did was shoot, dribble, and do everything with his left hand for an hour and a half. Now that's psychotic. That's Silence of the Lambs type stuff. But that's what I'm just saying. He saw a weakness and he said, I got to get better at this. I can't just ignore it because it's going to be waiting for me next October. I don't understand this mentality in the NBA where I have a weakness. Everybody's got weaknesses in this league. Why you don't just isolate the weakness. Did you have that, Bogues? With either your defense?
Free throws for
how
me,
did you deal with that?
It was hard. to your point, I was putting in the time and work like every off season. But
Yeah.
what got me a little bit, which isn't an excuse, it was an injury. So there was a lot of time I had that I couldn't spend my off seasons. You know, you have a development plan in your off season, and I have a development plan, but for 3 or 4 straight off seasons, I had like really bad injuries, right? So it kind of took away from my on court when I was younger to like, I need to work on this, this, and this. It was just like, shit, I can't move I broke my elbow. I can't shoot for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then,
Right.
you know, for me with free throws, it became a confidence issue after the injuries where I just wasn't confident with my arm. My touch was all messed up, and then it got in my head a little bit, and I felt like I broke through it the last 2 years of my career, thankfully, and ended on a note where I was confident going to the line and fine. But I was putting in the time, you know what I mean? I was putting in the time and effort, and I think I over put the time in to a point where I was overthinking it so much and making sure I got up 500 free throws a day at the end of a workout, and I think I was overdoing it, if that makes sense. So then it was I thought about it way too much. Or I thought about, you know, maybe I shoot 4 free throws a game, 6 free throws a game. It's not that much. Yes, you want to knock them down, but then it became this boulder in my brain of like, I got to be at least 60, 70%. You know, I can't get hack a shack. So then it had the opposite effect on me at times, and I broke through it towards the end, like I said, but that definitely weighed on me a little bit. And I was putting it. I think some guys just struggle with it mentally. Some guys struggle with just not, like Russ is just not a good shooter from 3. And I think he's putting the time in from what I see. Like he doesn't post.
He works.
Yeah.
No, he is a worker.
Exactly. So
He's
I think it's not, you know,
right.
It's just one of those things. It's just, just doesn't have that from a shooting point of view. Does a lot of other things great, but I can guarantee he's putting in the time. So I don't know. Is it maybe, are you doing the right things at practice? Are you not? Can we change some things up? I don't think the needle's moving that much between trainers in the NBA. I think most of them do the same shit for the most part. There's a few wacky ones out there. I think same with team shooting coaches. I think there's definitely better team shooting coaches than there isn't. But it's a tough one. I think it's just different. It's circumstances are different for each player. And, you know, I think most guys in the NBA are putting the time in. Now, shape's a different story. Like that's one of the biggest controllables where guys come in out of shape and you're like, you've had no injury. You've had 4 months off. Your team didn't make the playoffs. How have you come to training camp 5 months later with 15% body fat and an extra, 15 pounds? That's inexcusable in my opinion, because that's much more controllable.
Yeah. I just think that I do think players put in time in the summer on things. I just think that they put in time on things that they do well, or just new things they want to add to their game, instead of saying, look, well, you're not good at this. This is what we got to attack. Like Drew Hanlon, who's probably the best, I mean, in my opinion, the best trainer out there for NBA players. Like he actually, like if a player has a weakness, like Jason Tatum with his shooting, he changed his shot, or, specific things that he needs to change in a player, he'll change. But a lot of these trainers, they don't. They just go like the same script, or they want to add moves. Like I think it's a psyche thing on another level, Bogues. I think it's a psyche level where they don't want to either hear about or deal with the things that they really don't do well. Now, I think a player will work on it if it's the difference between being in the NBA or not. That's different. But I think a player that's either a starter or a rotation player that's not good at certain things, I think a lot of them, they run for the fucking hills when it comes to their weaknesses. I think they just like, oh, fuck it. Like, I can't play defense. They'll just hide me defensively, but I can give them 28 or 30, but I think that they do hide from their weaknesses. Not all of them, but a majority of the players that I've worked with over the years or observed over the years, they don't really like to attack weaknesses like left hand or shooting when it comes to like shot stuff. But like, I don't know, that's just me, and especially defense. Like, that's interesting that he says I need to ramp this part up, because defensively they always give you I give effort, I get into the ball, all this other bullshit. He gave a pretty decent answer in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see if it changes. And he's young. When I first came to the league, my head was spinning about all the different defensive philosophies and techniques and skills, and defensive 3 seconds. When can I go? When should I double? So he'll figure that out as time goes on. All right, wrap up you, Pro, with the fact or fake news.
Fact or fake news? Joel Embiid will play more games than Kawhi Leonard this year, Bogues. Fact or fake news?
That's a tough one, but I'll go fact. Joel Embiid will play more because he's at least played a couple and he's out there. And with Kawhi, that knee just doesn't sound good. It sounds super degenerative.
Nah.
Like we said,
No.
it just swells up like a balloon any time he puts, if he plays 3 games in 10 days, it's swelling up. So I'll go fact. Joel Embiid will beat him.
Okay, here's the second one. How do I phrase this one? Anthony Davis will be higher in the MVP voting than Luka Doncic. Fact or fake news? Now I know you're gonna say,
Injuries.
if he plays enough games,
if the games are like for like or close, so Luka's 70, 80s in the running because it's 65, right?
Right.
Okay, so if they're both in the running, eligible, I think Anthony Davis will win the MVP. Will be higher. I honestly, if he plays, Anthony Davis makes the threshold, he wins MVP. I'm calling it early. I think he's form. He's the MVP to this point. He's leading the league in scoring, isn't he? Still, and they're winning games. They're winning games. I know at one point he was the league leader in scoring. I don't know if he still is. He's 31.1. But I think outside of the Doncic question, regardless, I think if he passes the health threshold, has a healthy year, and the Lakers will be in the mix just automatically because he's on the floor, he will be the MVP.
Yeah, Davis is second. He's second at the moment.
Giannis there he is from the rafters. Giannis. I love it. Caleb, good job, brother.
Yeah, Giannis is first. And the Bucks suck. So.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
It will be interesting. It will be interesting. Davis is playing real well, and I think his aggression. I don't think he sustains that clip from 3, but he doesn't shoot a lot of them anyway. He gets to the free throw line a lot, and he's been really good at the defensive end. So, he's a main reason why the Lakers are there. Even with LeBron's triple-double run and him playing well at 40 and all that, you take out Davis and replace him with someone else, they're not 9-4. So, I think he's definitely the front runner for the MVP as of today. Yeah. Honeymoon period, though.
No, I totally agree with you as far as they need him to do what he's doing, and he's the one. I mean, LeBron's irreplaceable in his own way as well. Don't get me wrong, but he's definitely the guy that's really putting him in position to win every night with Davis's play. I do think it's a long season though, not only injury but being able to do this all year like this, to be energized to do it. I think that Luka's probably going to be higher just because Luka's not really having a great year up to this point. Like, he's doing all right, shooting numbers a little low, and I think that's going to sort of, I think that's going to uptick throughout the year. So I'll go on the other side on that one, Bogues. I'll say Luka's still got a lot. They're not playing well. He's not really shooting well. So I think that and he's sort of up and down sometimes throughout the year with that. So I say he's going to have I think he'll have a productive rest of the year and up those numbers. So I'll go with Luka on that one. I'll say.
All right.
I'll say.
We'll circle back. Mm-hmm. All right, bro. We'll see you next week, man. Update
all
that
right,
whiteboard.
And enjoy I'll change it. I'll put your scouting report on it next week. Yeah, I'll put your scouting report. All right, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll finish with some NBL. Big weekend in the NBL. We'll start off with Tasmania. Slowly getting healthy. Sean McDonald returns and a really steady performance, 7.7 assists. He seems like a steadier for that team, and he seems like he's going to take some pressure off Doyle having to do everything offensively for him. Doyle comes out and has one of his better games of the season. They beat Brisbane, probably steal that win. I felt like Brisbane played pretty well for the most part and just gave it up late in the game. Perth get on Southeast Melbourne after a hot start. Southeast Melbourne came out making everything in the first 4 or 5 minutes. It looked like it was going to be a long night for Perth, and then Perth just steadied. Return of Bryce, he had a big game for him. They get that win. New Zealand keep rolling against a somewhat healthy Cairns. They're getting more and more healthy, but they get that win. Some interesting news out of New Zealand, though, is Gillespie on the move for Taco Fall, which this is absolutely head-scratching. New Zealand are playing good basketball. Things seem to be clicking well, and I think Gillespie didn't start off great, but I think he's played very, very well as of late. He's been really good defensively for him, a great shot blocker, good rebounder, physical presence. He's coming off the bench for him, but I feel like he was getting shit done. He was playing well. The 7-3 at the minute. I don't understand it. I know the Taco Fall rumors started as just he's coming just to practice, just to rehab. But from what I understand, his management wants him. The head coach wants to keep Gillespie. There was a team that was going to take Gillespie. I think it was Milan, over in Europe. And that would then entail New Zealand not having to pay Gillespie out if they were to cut him because he can just move on. Something happened with that. The rumors were that then New Zealand wanted a buyout. Not sure if those are true. And then Milan basically said, no, we're not buying out. We'll take him off your books, but we're not buying out. Now it's a stalemate. Gillespie's now, they've said, no, you're back with us now. So there's a bit of a wild, wild west holdout going on as we go into a FIBA break. This will be interesting how it plays out. I just don't understand. I feel the break is why you tinker with your current squad. Does Taco Fall put you over the top compared to Gillespie? Off an injury. Look, Fall's a big fella, a well-known name, played in the NBA. In this league with a lot of the quickness and movement of the bigs, not sure how it all fits. Gillespie's coming to better form. It's a head scratcher. But from all reports I've heard, the coach wants to keep Gillespie and keep rolling with how they are, and management wants Fall. So bit of argy-bargy there, which happens. Look, management and coaches get into it, and that's normal. That's healthy. You want to have disagreement, but New Zealand's case study for their coach would be we're 7-3 and we're picked last by some people. So that is interesting. Illawarra control the Sydney Kings in Wollongong. I was at that game live. Tough one. Look, I don't think we played particularly well. Illawarra were on us for 3 straight quarters, and then I think they made some mistakes late, let us get back in the game. We probably could have stole that game late, would have thieved it. Probably didn't deserve it, but would have thieved it. Illawarra just seemed to control the tempo, the pace, and just got that win. They're a tough unit. You look at their roster, and they just have a lot of balance. They have shooting, they have defense, they have bigs that are physical, and they are definitely one of the championship favorites. So it puts Illawarra back in good form. I think they lost 3 straight before that. Puts them at 7-4. Puts the Kings back down to 7-6 in 5th place. I'll go over the ladder a little bit in a second, but a very, very tough win for Illawarra. Good win. And Sydney just never really in the game until late. It just seemed like just couldn't get it going. Just some mistakes, leaving shooters at the wrong time, giving up some offensive rebounds. Foul count didn't help. Look, I don't think the foul count completely changed the game, but it was noticeable that at times, we were getting the paint the same way as Illawarra, where we're both physical teams, and the free throw count was 14-2 at some point in the first quarter or first half. That's kind of hard to reel back when there's that much of an edge. Now the referees evened it up late in the game because there was some fouling and whatnot, but that's hard to reel back. Not saying that's the reason why. I don't think Sydney played particularly well, but I think it had helped. When you got 2 physical teams, it should be pretty even. But it seems like home teams generally this season are getting the benefit of the doubt with the foul call. Whether that's right or wrong, who knows? But it is noticeable, and it has been discussed by multiple people. That the home team does get the favorable whistle, especially from the free throw line. So that definitely didn't help our cause. Moving on from that, you go to the next day, Melbourne United versus the Adelaide 36ers. Melbourne United stomp them basically, get a big win for them. Adelaide, a very, very talented team, as we all know. They get an easy win by 20 points, but it's kind of what happened during the game that is now making news. NBL has released an agreement. They're investigating what has gone on. So for those that weren't familiar, Rob Lowe takes a charge on Montrezl Harrell, kind of pulls him down after he got the contact, pulled him down. Debatable what came first, who knows, but the call was an offensive foul. Rob Lowe falls on top of, or they're kind of on top of each other, which is normal when you take a charge, and then Harrell loses his mind, pushes Rob Lowe off. Looked like Shea Ely came in and relit things after it got under control. Some talking smack, which you do as a player. Ely's a very physical player, and you do that to protect your player. You didn't like what he did to Rob Lowe. Montrez then slaps him, open hand slaps him. Will be interesting to see what the league does there. Are you condoning a slap? Theoretically, it is a suspension in my book as soon as you put your hands on someone outside of a flow of basketball. The other one I found interesting that they let go was the elbow to I can't remember who it was from Melbourne United. It was in the flow of play, and I guess this player had run in front of Montrez as they were running down the court, and Montrez kind of lifted an elbow to the back, top of his back neck area. It was Kyle Bowen, I believe, and there was nothing basically called there besides a regular foul. They went to review for hostile act. Now, I'm scratching my head because if a shot to someone's back as you're running down the court is not a hostile act, I'm dumbfounded by the definition. Anyway, that was just assessed a technical foul or an intentional or a technical foul. Montrez ends up getting ejected for the slap. To be honest, I think Montrez has handled his emotions very well up to this point. If I was a betting man, I would have said this would have happened much earlier than it has. So he leaves. He's going to leave the court with an ejection. It then goes to their benches. From what I understand, there were some fans chirping to Adelaide players. I think there were some comments along the lines of like, "That's why you're not in the NBA. You got a bad attitude." That's what I'd heard was said, something along those lines. Don't know anything further as what happened with Davis or DJ. But then the fan gets into it with the players and the staff and the GM. And as a fan, you just cannot put your hands on players. You cannot get in players' faces, period. I know that the players were over the signage in the fans' area. What makes it funnier is I believe these were, not that it's funny, but the funnier side was I think these were the Reebok celebrity seats, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think they were the Reebok celebrity seats. So, interesting that they were in those seats. Fan then, apparently there were claims punches were thrown. I watched the replay, which good old Brennan Favola, shout out to him. He posted that on his Instagram. There didn't seem to be any punches thrown. There was some pushing, but that fan will probably be banned. Is it a life ban? I don't think so. Is it a ban for the rest of the season? Probably so. I don't know if any of the Adelaide players, does DJ get maybe just a talking to? Maybe. I don't know where that all goes. Does Montrezl Harrell get suspended for what he's done? Now he's the kind of the face of the league, the clickbait face of the league. He's a polarizing figure. If you're not playing against him, if you're not on his team, it's a bit much. If you're on his team, you love it. Price of admission for neutral fans is great. League want and need him out there. Does that play into the suspension if there is one? Who knows? But on the flip side, also, Montrezl Harrell's one that loves to talk. He'll talk to the fans. He'll talk to the both good and bad. Some profanity-laced rants for the crowd, the cheerleaders, the aunties, uncles, the dog they brought. He'll be talking to everybody. It just seemed like that he's got to accept to get some back every now and then, and that goes with physicality. It goes with staring guys down when he dunks on them. He loves to get into all that, but I think he got a little bit back from Ely, and then loses his mind and gets ejected. So, if I'm an NBL team watching that, one thing I know is that you can prod and poke Harrell and get these reactions, I think, consistently, and you can probably get him out of games. Where things are different in FIBA is even one technical foul goes on your personal foul count, so it can really affect the game. And I circle back to a time where when I was with the Warriors, we used to play the Clippers. It was a big rivalry, California rivalry. Clippers had Lob City. We were kind of coming into our own, but the Clippers were kind of the big brother that always bullied us. That kind of changed once I got there. We had Draymond. I starting on Blake Griffin. Then we put David Lee or Draymond on DeAndre Jordan. And I remember it was a Christmas Day game. We were playing against the Clippers, and Draymond and Blake got into it in the first half. Both got double technicals. So I now knew that Blake had a technical foul. So there was an opportunity in the second half. We got wrapped up in a rebounding contest. We both locked arms. I grabbed his kind of around his shirt front. He was grabbing me, and the whistle went to call a double foul. I hung on for dear life on purpose, because I'm like, if I hang on to him and it looks like we're getting into it, we're going to get a double T. He's already got one, and it's exactly what happened. I hung on to him as long as I could. The whistle went. Players ran in to break it all up. The whistles, what's going on? What's going on? They get the referees did a little meeting. All right, double technical. Beautiful. I'll take the tech and the fine, which I think at that time for a technical was $1,500. I knew he's out of the game in the third quarter. So I strategically went to poke him. why I'm bringing that up is I think that's what teams are going to look to do to Trez. You know, he loves being physical. He's pounding his chest, emotional guy. I think you can trick him into doing some things along the lines. And there are some guys in the NBL that are good at instigating that kind of stuff. And if I'm a coach and I'm playing him, I'm like, put my 9th, 10th guy in the rotation who's a physical, strong guy. Hey, just go niggle him a little bit, make him throw to the ground, get him an easy tech, especially if he's got one. Would not be surprised. But the NBL will release kind of what they're doing with all this. We'll be interested to see what direction it goes. You can never really call it. You had the Aaron Baines extreme who pushed Coach Aaron forward, got 3 games for that, I think, plus some suspended sentence. This is an open hand slap on the court. It probably warrants 1 in my opinion, maybe a little bit more with a suspended sentence. Will they go that route? Who knows? Brisbane then finished the round by playing Perth. And Bateman, welcome to the NBL. He was, 51 points he had against the Perth team who was back with Bryce. Favorites arguably in that game, and it was unbelievable. I watched the second half of that game when he got hot, and he was absolutely phenomenal. He was hitting everything and anything, and just was a beast out there. And to say, you know, we don't admit our mistakes on this podcast, or I don't. I'm going to say I didn't think he was a very good import at the start of the season, and he wasn't playing that well. I apologize. I respect your game. You know, he really showed what he's about. And look, he's not a argy-bargy type player, an import, a loud import. He seems like he's very quiet, very introverted, doesn't say a lot, doesn't show a lot of emotion. And he's proven that he's going to be a mainstay in this league. You know, he just gets it done. You know, goes out 51 points, but the clips that he did it at as well weren't just mass shooting. It was 19 for 28, 10 for 13 from 3. Just was sensational as far as all that went. So congratulations to the Brisbane Bullets getting a huge win against Perth. And I mean, Perth, probably a letdown for them. You know, they probably looked at this as getting a double weekend in playing two of the bottom teams in Southeast Melbourne at home. No-brainer win. Going into Brisbane, they probably thought we're a pretty good chance here. Brisbane's not playing that well, and they get stung. I think with Bryce back, I think this showed the value of Doolittle and question. You know, you could probably question his value as far as, look, not statistically, not scoring wise, but as what he does for that Perth Wildcats team. I think it showed when they were missing him. You know, in that game, like, you know, he does a lot of little things for them. Seems like a steadier, and you know, didn't play much that night, and Brisbane get the win. Side note: Rocco Zakarski's best game of his NBL career. He had 13-7 in 19 minutes, and just looked much more comfortable out there, especially with Emmett Nah. Emmett Nah was a late pickup for them, an injury replacement, a guy that was head-scratchingly out of the league. He's an awesome pick-and-roll player. That's kind of his MO, and he got Rocco 2 or 3 easy dunks just from his playmaking and his ability to just stretch out the defense and make the right play. So I think you'll see, I think Brisbane might have found something with those two coming off the bench. They work well together. So it's good to see Rocco getting some easy buckets, easy dunks. And yeah, he was influential on kind of what they did. I mean, I think Harrison was in some foul trouble at some points in the game and got out of there. But congrats to Rocco. And yeah, the NBL season now, you got a 10-day break now till the next game, or a bit more than that. So I think Friday and the week after next is the next game. Guys will get healthy. We'll see what happens with the suspensions, if there is any. It will be very interesting. I mean, I know some teams are banged up as well, so looking forward to this FIBA break. It is important, and obviously congrats to the Boomers. And just a short bit of news for the Rogue Bogues followers and for many NBL fans. Some will like it, some won't. Unlucky, deal with it. But I will be joining the commentary team for a handful of games here and there. Joining the greats there in that commentary team and just trying to give some insight. I like to talk about a bunch of issues, not just basketball, but one thing I'm passionate about talking about is basketball and style of play and kind of the X's and O's sides of things and adjustments and what should happen. And hopefully I can relay some of that to the viewer in the NBL and give some of the insights that I've learnt and dealt with over over 20 years in pro and college and high school basketball. So check that out in the next couple of weeks, and check into an NBL game if you want to hear more of my beautiful voice. We'll see you all next week. Thank you.